All right, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum, shalom. Welcome, 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 everyone. We are back. We are live, and our topic today: the machinery of the mind, psychological warfare, and the strategy of clarity. The strategy of clarity. Our goal today is to break down how our biological wiring can be used against us or used for us. And I believe that a lot of the things, well, all of the things that Black people have been through in America, whether you experienced it firsthand or it is passed down through DNA, has an effect. And I think when we look at the masses of our people, especially in their ignorance, I believe that it is an effect. It comes from a cause. And so today we're going to step into that and look and see exactly what's wrong with us mentally and how do these things actually take root. So again, the machinery of the mind, the psychological warfare, and the strategy of clarity. And we got Twin Pyramid in the house. Peace and blessings, Brother Twin. It's good to see you. All right, as we get started here, Doc, when we discuss, I don't know, have you heard of the dark laws? It's like 24 or 30. And they're called the dark laws. The
No,
dark
sir.
laws or the ugly laws of human behavior?
No.
No? Okay.
I bet you I didn't encounter them, though.
I bet you have. Most definitely. Let's see. So, the first part, let me see, I'm going to share screen so we can look at these laws real quick. Okay. So the first one, everyone acts in their own self-interest. Even acts that appear to be selfless usually serve a hidden internal need for reputation or self-image. 2, people don't want the truth. They want validation. We are hardwired to protect our self-concept rather than seek objective facts. Most kindness is a transaction. Reciprocity is a universal social norm. Most gifts carry an unspoken expectation of return. Guilt is often a performance, not a feeling. Performed guilt is a social currency used to preempt punishment or manipulate others. People respect power more than virtue. Niceness is often read as low status. Real respect comes from conviction, selectivity, and composure. Now, of course, this is written by a white man. But when I first read it, I was like, yeah, that's true. I see white people in there all single day, every single way. and we get caught up into it. Um,
Hmm.
and I think that one of the big ways we get caught up is number three, where it talks about most kindness is a transaction. People being nice to you to get something from you. And, our people have been adopting these rules, or I don't know what you want to call them. But this is America, Doc,
Hmm.
up and down. This is America.
Hmm.
So, discussing these laws and understanding the ugly side of human behavior is a prerequisite for leadership. And they talk about knowledge without compassion produces sin. Oh,
It's something strange going on with your voice right now, like it's become digitized or something.
oh wow.
It's cleared up now.
It's cleared up?
Yeah.
Okay. So when we look at this saying, let me throw this saying up here because we want to go over this. Here. Knowledge without compassion produces clinics. Compassion without knowledge produces victims. Now, when I read that, that really stood out. And I when I look at Doc, the Iran situation with America, right, and how they deal with um, Netanyahu and stuff, and
Hmm.
it's like they really don't understand these people. That they don't understand Bush. They don't understand Trump. They don't understand Netanyahu. They don't understand. You let them bomb you and get away with it. They gonna keep doing the shit. They not gonna have no compassion because they killed 10,000 of your people. They don't give a shit. Gonna keep bombing your ass.
Hmm.
And so, this happens a lot with us, that a lot of our people misjudge what I would call the enemy.
Hmm.
And when they do that, they become victims overnight. Do you think that the civil rights movement leadership didn't understand this principle?
Um, it's hard for me to say that they didn't understand the principle
Mm-hmm.
because you're dealing with people who are by and large Southern based, and they they were raised up, they were reared. A major part, a major pillar of their socialization was how do you escape the Klan? How do you
Mm-hmm.
avoid some of these tenuous, less savory situations that you can find yourself in due to no fault of your own? I think that we misread a lot of the civil rights leadership, especially those when we're that we look at in traditional, the names that Rustin, King, Abernathy, these individuals who are by and large coming out of a Christian ethos.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. I don't think that you can evaluate and look at their actions from a purely do they understand white folk position, because it if you do, number one, I think that you're in error, but number two, you're missing the larger point. And the larger point is that they're actually battling the devil and seeking help from the outside. Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth said it this way. He said, "Ball teams don't strike themselves out. You got to put them. You got to put them out."
Mm-hmm.
King, and we'll, for clarity's sake, we'll just deal with King. King is in many ways doing what Barack Hussein Obama did.
Mm-hmm.
He's running a very brilliant public relations campaign where he's putting in front of white folk a moral dilemma and asking them, which way are you going to represent yourself in front of your children? How are
Mm-hmm.
you going to, and And in many ways, he's understanding, like Shuttlesworth said, the South is never going to do what was correct, not on its own. You're going to
Mhm.
need some pressure from the outside. Black folk, in and of themselves, with all the marching, all the singing, all the praying that they've done, they're not strong enough to be able to do it on their own. So it reminds me of the white leaders, the white leadership of Montgomery, Alabama, having to back off of their treatment of black civil rights leaders to be less brutal because that footage was making it to Germany, and they were in negotiation to have the Germans build a factory, a major factory in this city that was going to enrich them. So I think they understand who I know they understand who they're dealing with, but their tactic can't be evaluated based upon solely dealing with white folk. It has to be looked at from a larger global perspective where they're trying to speak to people who are not as racist or bigoted as these Southerners are. And I yield, brother.
So that I want to make sure I'm understanding you right.
Okay.
You're saying that for what they suffered, and it's a part of their strategy to go out there and take an ass whooping,
Hmm.
so white folks in other countries can come and see
Not
how good you
any
take ass whooping.
any place that is non-Southern, any place outside of the South, that's in many ways who they are largely speaking to with their activism.
And I think that's where these things come definitely into effect because
Hmm.
those demons don't have compassion for what they did to our people.
Yeah, but the but
They
the
made them victims. They didn't.
yeah, but the trying to be fair to the civil rights leadership, I think that the goal is actually to get other white folk to throw their weight into this. And in many ways, that's a admission or recognition, so to speak, that we know that the Southern white man is incapable of doing what's right, that he is what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would refer to as a devil, as a demon, that there's no use in trying to do anything with him because he doesn't have an ounce of good in him.
And understanding that um, there's no way that I can see
Hmm.
any of the beatings justifying um, what they got in return. I just I don't see it that it was something that was worthy that you should go and get beat up, dragged off the bus because you want to sit next to white folks
Yeah,
when you could
but
have got your or open your own damn store, sit next to yourself.
well, the irony of it is that at that time, the time that we're talking about, they already had their own store
Hmm.
because you're dealing with a segregated society. So
Right.
they already have that going on.
Hmm.
But the larger argument, and this is probably the best argument that one will get from in defense of what we see King and all of those guys do. The argument is that it's about generating first class citizenship for black folk,
Hmm.
that you can truly be equal on the law books of America after dealing with these things that you're going to have to deal with in America. Um, and there's something, I guess I could use the word mighty. There's something mighty to be said about that, something powerful to be said about that, because quite simply, you're not equal. And you have to remember that Black folk don't become equal in this nation until the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that LBJ is going to sign. Before then, you were truly a second class citizen. There was nothing, there was no questions about it. There was nothing there. You were a second class citizen, and you were expected to conduct yourself and behave as a second class citizen, going along with the existing Jim Crow system.
And so I think that there's like two ways or three ways that they could have went.
Okay.
One was to go that route of fighting for integration.
Hmm.
Another way is to, go your own way and to hell with it. And the third way is to fight back, literally. Fist for fist, tooth for tooth, eye for eye, life for life.
Hmm.
Beat them into a situation where they got to say, okay, we're going to do what's right.
But see, there is, regardless of what you're dealing with when you're dealing with this ilk of people, and I'll just term them that way, this ilk of people, you're going to need some leverage that's going to cause them to have to bend, to break even. And if you go back and you look at the Montgomery bus boycott, the thing that broke the backs of the white businessmen, the city leaders, was actually that Christmas was coming up. You have to remember that Rosa Parks is going to be arrested in December. Okay, what was it, 55? 55. She's arrested in December of 55, and Emmett Till having been killed earlier that year. But the thing that caused them to strike down segregation on the buses is actually going to be the fact that black folk have not shopped downtown for approaching a full year in the downtown shops, despite how they treat black folk. And this is almost deja vu when you think about, like a place like Houston, Texas, with the Galleria and what have you. Black folk are spending the lion's share of their income in these places, getting these white European designer labels and bags and things like that. The business class of Montgomery didn't know that they could make it through another Christmas without the Negro dollar. And so they wound up buckling as a result of that. That's coercion, that's doing it your way. The idea of just solely circulating your money within your community is a great novel idea, but it's one that has to be scrutinized in a lot of ways because we don't have necessarily the infrastructure to be able to do that. There's only so many Rosewoods. There's only so many Greenwoods outside of Tulsa for us to be able to do it that way. And doing it that way, if you try to do it that way, would in many ways, how can I put this? Would in many ways open you up even more so to hostile white takeover and violence.
I'm going to share, we're going to check out this video.
Mhm.
And let's see. Um,
Which doll is white? Which doll is black? Which one is pretty? This one.
Which one is pretty? Which one is ugly? And which one is good? Which one is bad? Which one is good? Why is she good?
Because she has blue eyes.
Which one is bad? Why is she bad?
Because everything is black. And which doll looks more like you? Which doll is black? She offended me.
Who?
You. Why?
Because you called me black.
Why are you offended? You.
Offend me because other girls have insulted me in a mean way. No, I didn't use any meanness. That one is looking at me askance.
Now, those children were not Black American children. They were Black Italian children.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing of black being bad and white being good has been translated universally now.
Certainly.
And when we look at this, we have to understand it from the position that they don't want, regardless of where our people are on this planet, they want to maintain that white on the top and black on the bottom. They want to maintain that structure. They want to maintain that the children see no goodness in their blackness.
Mm-hmm.
They see no goodness. To look at those children, Doc, and see the sadness in their faces is definitely hurtful.
Yeah.
And it comes from capitulation to our enemy. And that's something that it just has to change. There's no way that we're going to produce a good, strong people when we are bowing down to our enemy, and it's going all the way down into our children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you're looking at the classic Kenneth and Mamie Clark black doll, white doll, test that actually is the thing that it was that research, it was that display that leads the U.S. Supreme Court justices to give the Brown decision, the 1954 Brown decision, because what they say, and this is one of the things that for me, looking at that really struck me. What the Supreme Court justices said in their opinion, in the Brown opinion, was this: that racial segregation has to go away in the schools because it is causing irreparable harm to the minds of Black children. Now, you think about that, and you're talking about, in many ways, an educational system that, and I always have conflict with my people when I say this, but they're talking about an educational system that was probably the greatest black-headed educational system that we ever had. In 1950, the gender ratio of black male to black female teachers was 50-50. Black men were in the classroom at the same rate as their female counterparts. There was a kind of a understanding. I was just thinking about this a couple of days ago. There was kind of an understanding, a given, that black children attending a racially segregated school were learning lessons about George Washington Carver.
Mm-hmm.
That just by default, they were learning some black history, some black inventors, and things like that. Yet at the exact same time that we point to that and we talk about that right now, let's also be very, very, very clear that those black segregated schools were still under the supervision, the leadership of white folk. These were not independent black schools. These
Mm-hmm.
were schools that by and large were given the worst materials and what have you, but they were still expected to teach the lessons that white folk wanted them to teach, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're dealing with a situation where these children that you just showed are by and large in a segregated school system. Let's be in a desegregated school system, um, being educated by people who by and large should know better and know more about these types of what I would refer to as substantive issues. Yet, at the exact same time that we're able to say that, it's clear what the result is. And the result is what the result has kind of always been. And that is that you have black children, black people in general, who are being maligned and denigrated and disrespected um, in these schools and in these school curriculums. The scariest part of it all, because I liken it as an educator, I refer to this as an intellectual diet. What is your intellectual diet? What are you meaning? Just like what are you putting in your body for physical nourishment? What are you putting in your mind for nourishment, for direction, and what have you? We've allowed white folk to dictate to us what are classics. We've allowed for them to dictate what is knowledge. That if you leave out of here and you know these 100 facts and none of them are about black folk, you're an educated person. One of the most amazing and revealing aspects of how little people know about black folk and how we're not in these school curriculums by and large. Watch any episode of Jeopardy that has a black column, and you'll see these people who know all this weird, bizarre, these facts, not know anything about black folk. So I'm not going to say that they got us, because I think a more appropriate description is they've always had us. And as a man thinketh, so is he. So if your child is being taught by people who hate you, what do you think that child's going to come out of that educational experience, doing or feeling? They're going to come out thinking like the person who taught them. One of the things that the professors at Ohio State would say about us, our advisor, Dr. Warren Van Tyne, I hope he's resting peacefully in heaven. But Dr. Van Tyne was a communist. Okay?
Mm.
We've talked about this oftentimes, talking about communism and socialism here. and you know that I'm an advocate for socialism. I'm a social democrat.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from him.
Mm.
And the other professors would say, he was a white guy, and white professors would say, well, Van Tynen lost the communist revolution in America, but he's trying to bring the nation down by creating hundreds of black PhDs who are communists or socialists to keep his struggle going. We think like him because he was our teacher.
Right.
We value what he valued because he was our teacher. The idea of having a teacher also being a mentor, telling you, listen, why don't you read this? Why don't you take a look at this? Is an influence that can really be measured. I just had a back and forth with one of my best students, and he's kicking these ideas about black economics and things like this. And I say to him, I said, have you ever heard of Claude Anderson? He was like, no, who's that? I pulled up some Claude Anderson stuff for him. And he quite simply said, oh man, how come I never heard of this guy? I'm like, your ideas are just like his.
Right.
Nothing new. But until somebody cares enough, who knows, to turn you on to somebody, you're going to think, you're not going to be able to really capitalize upon what it is they taught. So whoever is in the scary, and I'll end with it. The scariest thing that we have right now within the American educational system is that these end of the road tests where teachers are being forced to teach to the test. And failure to teach to the test means quite simply your students are going to have low scores, which means you're not going to be brought back because you're going to be looked at as a subpar teacher. You could be a wonderful teacher. You just didn't teach what was going to be on that test.
Right.
So in many ways, what's being taught in that classroom is being controlled by end of the road tests. And here in Houston, we have a developing situation that many people will not believe, but our situation that we're dealing with is quite simply, they are literally timing teachers. They have hired someone to stand in the classroom and will time how long you spend on this topic, that topic, this topic, that topic, and you better have it right and exact. Because if you don't, you're gonna get removed from the classroom and you'll be fired that day.
Good Lord.
So is that teaching? No, it's not.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Wow. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Doc, when we look at validation, do you think validation is prioritized over truth? Especially
Ask that in a different way. You get what I'm saying?
do you think that the civil rights leaders
Mhm.
got their validation because they sided with their integrational hopes or leanings? Did they prioritize that, the white man validating them, having them in the Oval Office to sit and talk, standing behind the president when they sign bills, validation versus truth?
Wow. I don't think, and I'm trying to be as sunny and optimistic as I can in regards to the old guard civil rights establishment. Everybody except for Andrew Young. But what I'll say is this: that I think that they saw, and Dr. King talks about this, that they saw the movement forward for Black folk to be incremental. And Dr. King, he says this, and where do we go from here? Chaos or community? King says the civil rights movement actually had two stages. The first stage of that movement was securing equality on the law books of America. And one could argue that the 64 Civil Rights Act, 65 Voting Rights Act, once again under LBJ, achieved that. But there's a second step. And King says that second step is the exercise of that equality, the activation of that equality. And he says that's a step that this nation has never tried to implement. So I think that what someone who would say that they're seeking validation by being there, no, I think that they're in many ways celebrating the fact that we're now finally equal. From 1619 to 1965, Black folk were never equal in this nation on the law books of America. And of course, once again, what King said is the activation of that equality. We haven't even done that. At least you're equal now on the law books of America. It's the reason why when I ask my students, name me one law that white folk got that Black folk don't have, they can't name it because it doesn't exist. But follow that question up with the subsequent question of, do you think Black folk are equal with white folk in America? Every one of them says no. Because the exercise, the activation of that equality that we have on the law books of America has never happened.
But in 1865, when we got the right to vote, there was no other law because
When Black men got the right to vote.
yeah, when Black men got the right to vote,
Okay.
up in the North,
Mm-hmm.
Blacks were voting.
Mm-hmm.
So they had the law. They didn't need another law. They were voting. Down in the South, they were denied that right to vote by passing different laws or putting roadblocks.
Yeah.
You got to have a test. You got to pass this test.
Yeah, the black codes.
Yeah, you know. And then their long, arduous task of violence, the thing that they love, violence, to stop Black people from voting. So the thing to me is not so much you didn't have the right, because you had the right. The problem was you didn't have, I would say, the strength or the organizational pull to defeat them on that battlefield, blow by blow.
Yeah, but see, yeah, but the issue that you're going to keep coming up with and coming against is this one, and it's the difference. It's what Baird Rustin was telling King. The difference between what you saw with nonviolent civil disobedience in India with Mahatma Gandhi, okay, the Indians battling the British, is that British soldiers would say this. They wrote this in their memoirs and their diaries, that they, after a day of whooping the Indians, they were so exhausted they thought they may die because it was so many of them. The Indians numerically outnumbered by multifold the British that were there oppressing. For Black folk, it's the exact opposite. And I would argue that, and I guarantee if you were to ask some Brits, some Brits this, they would agree with this, that the bottom barrel of Brits who are bigoted and racist and things like that can't even begin to touch, the worst of them can't even begin to touch white folk when it comes to racism and discrimination and prejudice and all the things that they've done to our people. I mean, they've gotten to the point where they say we wouldn't even know the human species. So when you're looking at the difference in theaters, okay, the American theater is so much different because we are so numerically small. So the idea of picking up guns it puts me right back into the mindset of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's reaction when Malcolm wanted to go to the streets. And he says, no, 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 no. I'm not putting my people in that situation because they would, and you know that these people are eager to slaughter us. And those that they don't kill, they're going to incarcerate so long and treat so bad that they might as well be dead. So I think that you have to kind of look at it through that lens. Look at the numbers. You know, the idea of defending oneself, and we have probably the two classic examples are Greenwood, quote unquote Black Wall Street, and Rosewood. These are all black towns,
Mm-hmm.
okay, who still were not able to withstand the onslaught
Mm-hmm.
of white folk when they came,
Mm-hmm.
because they're coming like in waves. It's as if you're fighting the Roman army, just out of a war of attrition. They're going
Mm-hmm.
to win. So the idea of you having the right to vote without there's a lot of things that are discussed when you had the 13th Amendment that ends American chattel slavery. You have the 14th Amendment that's going to bestow citizenship upon anyone who's born in this land, and that's the one out of all of them that I think is going to be discarded before everything is said and done,
Mm-hmm.
because of the brown people who are here. And then you have that 15th Amendment, and we have to remember that the 15th Amendment only applies to men. And then they're going to put these addendums on it of having to pay a poll tax, having to pay property tax, having to own. You're going to have these things. That's just who they are. Now, how do you overcome that and go into their system? I'm kind of like you on that you probably shouldn't even be aiming to do that. You should be focused upon building up your own.
Mm-hmm. Now, Doc, when you mentioned Rosewood, and I think we got to point out that the police in Rosewood were not black; they were white.
Oh yeah, they're white.
They did not protect the citizens whatsoever, and I don't understand how in the hell in a black town you gonna have white police, and you think that these white police is gonna protect you from other white folk? You think that the white police is going to treat you better? It shows a lack of understanding of who your enemy is.
Yeah, but I think that if you go back and you look at out of all places, next to Newark, I call this the blackest place in America, Gary, Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Gary, Indiana, as black as it is, elected a white man to be its mayor after Richard Hatchard, and we're in there. And so you have that. Well, I mean, once again, it's your mind and how you look at things, what type of information that you get. Think about how unfathomable it should be that the man who's the first black president of independent Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, the CIA is able to convince the Ghanaian people that Nkrumah's actually oppressing them. And they execute a coup and kick Nkrumah out.
Mm-mm-mm. This is the reason why we are perpetual victims, because we can't make good decisions knowing who these demons are. And you're going to fall victim and listen and let them suck you up. And next thing you know, you bone dry dead.
Yeah, but the question that you have to ask yourself is, honestly, do they know who they are? Do they? Who told them? Who taught them?
I think if you continue to have our enemy teaching our children, they'll never know. And the parents are happy not knowing who they are,
I mean, the parents
because
can't.
it's easier to get along than it is to stand on truth.
Well, I mean, the parents have matriculated through the exact same educational system. And to go back to Dr. King and the idea of nonviolent civil disobedience, the reason that King used young people is because they don't have any real world responsibilities where they can go down there and they can get arrested versus their parents. If you're if you're an adult and you have, and I mean, come on, man, we both have families, we both have children. Do you eat shit and grin to keep that job to make sure your baby's got college tuition?
I think that I think if things were done properly, if we had not, our people had not fought so hard for integration, that we continued our own business, shopped among our own, we would not be in the position we are in today. I think that to wanting to be said, the wanting the validation that I'm equal to my enemy, carried too much damn weight that really sunk our freaking boats. It sunk our freaking boats.
I mean,
To want to say that.
I hear you, but it goes, for me, it always reverts back to the educational system. Always. And the place that was supposed to be the factory, the liberation factory for our people, and has never made its never found a way to do, to number one, do it, let alone to do it efficiently, have been the HBCUs. The HBCUs, by and large, especially by the time you get the Brown decision, those are institutions of producing Negroes who are able to go into a white corporation or company and make more money than anybody in their genetic line has ever made. Yet you're losing black businesses. You know, I talk about this. I've talked about this on this show several times. There's a great moment in the movie Lackawanna Blues where Hill Harper's character is going to get something. He's now an adult and he's going to get something for Nanny, and it's like a wintry day or what have you. And as he's walking, you finally get a chance to see what the black community of Lackawanna, New York looks like. And it's all boarded up businesses and things like that. And Hill Harper's character says this. He says, "We forgot in our zeal, in our haste to integrate with white America, that every time a white door opened, a black one closed." And that's in many ways what happened. You know, in my hometown of Mansfield, Ohio, we had a situation where this brother he had a good thing going. He had a rib house, okay, a little rib restaurant. Wasn't no seats or nothing in there that you could sit down and eat. You could just go in there, you go to the counter, you get your food, you get in your car, and you go home. It was one block off of the main road, Park Avenue. It would be Park Avenue East. White folk were comfortable enough to go up in there, go that one block, get their food, and they was right back out of there. And it's not like Mansfield, Ohio is the south side of Chicago or anything. Okay. He could have stayed there. Nobody forced that Negro to leave. Next thing we know, he's out at the mall. He lost his black customers because ain't nobody black gonna drive all the way to the mall to buy no doggone barbecue ribs. Okay. And then, as my Uncle Clarence said, he said, "Man, come on, man. You can't go eat no ribs and then go feeling all on some clothes at the mall." He said, "You're going to leave stains all over them clothes." Long story short, he ends up losing his spot out at the mall. Okay. My mother's co-workers at Gorman Rupp, they were always after my mother to go to lunch with them, and she would always come up with an excuse why she couldn't go, this and that. And finally, they wore her down, and she went. And she said they talked about that food being good out there. And keep in mind, I'm from. There's a bunch of Amish where I'm from. This place was called the Amish Inn. My mom goes in there, and she says the food was excellent. She said she was just undone of how good the food was. You would have to know my mother. My mother decides that she won't know who cooked the food. So she gets up and acts like she's trying to go to the restroom and walks into the kitchen like she's going in there by mistake. Who do you think was in there cooking?
Black folk?
Johnny's Rib House whole staff
Wow.
had then lost his spot, and the white folk hired him, and he worked for them probably until the day that he died.
Mm,
So there's a way
mm,
where there's obvious ways where he could have, in many ways, kept his spot, kept his independence, and what have you. But it wasn't good enough for him. That level of success or financial stability wasn't good enough.
mm,
I mean, come on, man. You are. Let's call you what you are. You are a barbecue rib and barbecue chicken cooker.
mhm,
Okay, and and you got your niche right here. Everybody knows where you at. People who, the white folk were coming down there, they were buying this, and you lost your mojo.
mhm.
So
Exactly.
the idea of circulating the dollar, for some reason, it's not enough for black folk. It's something not enough. It's not sexy enough. It's not there's something that it's not enough of, and they go ahead and they do what they're going to do. But I don't think that you can divorce the fact that educationally and even culturally, many of our people are what I would term white-minded.
Mhm, mhm,
One of the things that shocks a lot of people about me is that I know 70s and 80s pop music. Okay, Carl, Richard Marx, Bananarama, Duran Duran, the Reflex. And the reason that I know that music so well is that we didn't have a BET. So that
mm,
was all that we had. So in many ways, there's a part of my cultural frame of reference that is very white. Okay, because that's all we had. And I'm sure you remember these moments where when Michael Jackson, when Billie Jean came out,
mhm,
put that Negro in rotation.
mhm,
Get it when it was Thriller.
mhm,
When it was Thriller, they had a countdown. We gonna play Thriller in 17 minutes and 36 seconds, and all black folk would come in and watch it because
mhm.
all we had before then were white folk, and we were watching that black man on that white owned station, MTV, VH1. So the idea of a black nation is only accomplishable and achievable if we're able to do what the Nation of Islam has done. And that is, in many ways, disseminate your own literature to your own people.
Mhm,
So that when they talk about this, how are they going to reference it and talk about? They're going to talk about what it is that they read.
mhm,
The same way that many of these misguided Negroes, when they talk about politics or whatever, they talk about what they've seen on Fox.
mhm. Exactly. Exactly. Looking at how did the leaders, or how should, or before I even say how should they or how could they, do you believe that the civil rights leaders provided a healthy self concept to their followers?
Is Malcolm included in there?
No, Malcolm wouldn't be included in it.
You ain't gonna give us Malcolm?
No. Mm-mm.
I would say that Fred Shuttlesworth did. Um, but the fact that I'm kind of, I gotta pick out one member of the most radical
Mhm.
member of the group leads me to saying no. Leads me to saying no. I know Dr. King had his moments, but it's in many ways like Booker T. Washington. It's a very tenuous situation and a fine line that King would have to walk because he doesn't want to say the wrong thing and offend his white benefactors.
Mhm.
It's not accidental that King is killed after a year to the day after he gave that sermon at the Riverside Church where he denounces the Vietnam War, that I ain't gonna study war no more sermon.
Mhm.
That was LBJ's war.
Exactly.
And many people say that removed the covering that LBJ had over King, okay, which led to his assassination. So that it's very difficult, unless you're talking about Albert Cleage and the Shrine of the Black Madonna.
Mhm.
Black church, by and large, not in public, they haven't done a very good job of talking about race and Christianity and religion and how those things are central to you keeping your right mind. Because
Mhm.
if your God does not look like you in trouble.
Exactly.
You are in, I remember Brother Khaled talking about here you are on your knees praying, because they didn't came in and turned your water off. And they talking about they don't want some of it, they want all of it right now. And you get down on your knees and you close your eyes, and the image you praying to is look like the same white dude that came and cut your water off. And that there's something to be said for your how you imagine things.
Right.
If you can't even in your imagination imagine black folk being on top,
Mhm.
that's a problem.
Very
You
much so. Hmm. Definitely. There's definitely a problem. And then we also want to look at Law 16. Well, not 16, Law 18, I'm sorry, where it says most people don't want freedom. They want safety in a cage. True freedom creates vertigo. People prefer familiar structures that tell them who to be, that tell them who to be. And so we're looking at, before I go into any further, do you agree with that? Do you disagree
yes,
with that?
yes, wholeheartedly. Hmm.
And
And I can tell you for sure that I have that in me as well.
mm,
Structure,
mhm,
routine, a being being regimented and things like that. Yeah, I have that in me as well. And I in many ways I've I've been at the same job since '03.
mm,
You get what I'm saying? I've been at the same
mm,
job, 22 years at the same spot. Now I've had other places that recruit me, ask me to come work there,
mhm,
and sometimes I did go, but it was always on a part-time or adjunct basis. I
mhm,
kept my main thing going. And many people said, "Man, you should be doing this, you could be doing blah 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 blah." I can't go too far from my main thing
mhm,
because it's kind of what I saw my parents do,
mhm,
and it's what I do.
mhm,
At least I know, I got this. The only thing that I'm, I kind of get adventurous on is when I'm at the casino, brother. And that's when, you know, we're gonna let it ride, let it ride. You know, you know.
Mm. So let's look at these bad cages that people
Mhm.
get in, bad cages or failed systems, because they fear the pain of loss more than they value the potential gain.
Oh, certainly.
Look at and this is one thing that I really didn't understand, like with the sharecroppers,
Hmm.
that they chose to stay on the land
Hmm.
and make a deal with somebody who has no honor, who word don't mean a goddamn thing.
But
But they chose to stay there versus going and facing the unknown of what can I find better up north.
yeah, but that's in many ways, like I said, that's how I'm built.
Hmm.
That's how some people are built. That you principally, because I often lecture about that turn of the century moment, the couple years after Booker T. Washington's Atlanta Compromise, the Plessy case has come down, so racial segregation has been codified. You have principally two personality types.
Hmm.
Okay, and my students often get mad when I explain it like this. I'm like, how many of you are multi-generational Southern?
Hmm.
Always 98% of the hands go up in the auditorium. And I say, okay, listen, I'm not talking about your scared ass ancestors.
Mm.
Okay. I'm talking about my ancestors. Okay. My grandfathers, they left. Okay. Now you got those who are going to stay, okay, in fear. And then you have men like my grandfathers who left. And the question that I imagine people asked them was, so where you going?
Mm.
I don't know. How
Mm.
you gonna get there? I don't know. And it boils down to the understanding. And James Baldwin said this about his going to Europe penniless. Okay, because he was sure that nothing could happen to him in Europe that didn't already happen in America. Okay, kind of a stepping out on faith. But
Right.
these people are operating from a perspective of any place has got to be better than here.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, those who stayed would say that ain't true because there are some situations that you could find yourself in that, especially during that time, even during this time, that would make you question if there is a God. When I was at the NCBS, the National Council of Black Studies, got to spend some time with a dear friend of mine, Daryl Scott, and his family. And I made the comment to him that it bothered me to see so many brothers in the Maryland, D.C. area almost laughing at Black women who had made all of this money working for the government. And he said, yeah, he said, but see, you weren't here. So you don't really understand what that's about. And he explained it to me. He said, "Listen, these sisters were all they had to do was create a nonprofit, and they were by law gonna give them some connections so that they can make all of this money." And he said, and they got in many ways haughty and beside themselves. So when they fell, the brothers was like, look at your black ass now."
Hmm.
Okay, so many of these people who have worked for government, some government entity, look, they up against it. And that's the worst, that these people who stayed were thinking. And one of the things, and I'll stop with this, one of the things that amazed me, because my mother's side, they're from Arkansas and Memphis, so I spent a lot of time in and around Memphis growing up. I met Black people who trace their lineage a significant part of the way they can trace it is by what plantation their people worked on.
Mm,
And many of these people are still working on some of those plantations.
mm, mm, mm. Wow, that is ridiculous. But when we look at mass conformity, um, regardless of where white folks came from, Russia, Italy, whatever, Germany. And what I learned, Doc, let's take a little side detour real quick,
Well,
that Hitler and his boys learned all they shit from watching America do it to us.
mhm.
They stopped at the one drop rule
Mhm.
because they like, we start, if we take up that they doing the one drop rule, then it's going to eventually get us all. So we ain't gonna mess around with no one drop rule. We're gonna leave that shit. But everything else them Americans doing to those niggas over there, we gonna do to these Jews over here.
Mhm.
We're gonna do the exact same thing. I didn't know that. I thought Hitler came up with that shit themselves. I
No.
didn't know that they studied America and said we're gonna do what them motherfuckers doing over there. I didn't know that.
I mean, you have to think that when you're talking about Germany, I'm one of the this will sort of give you an idea of how little guidance I received as a high school student. Of all the languages that I could have studied in high school, somehow I convinced my ignorant self that the language of the future was German.
Mm.
Okay, I didn't want to study Spanish. I didn't want to study Latin. I'm studying German. Me and Ples Everson, we're the only two black folk in the German class. Everybody else in there, their forefathers was from Germany. Okay? And then, of course, like I've said on here before, I was a fellow at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. Um, yeah, my senior project was to read and write about Mein Kampf, My Struggle, Adolf Hitler's book. And I had to read it in German. It took me a long time to be able to make it through that book in German.
Mm.
And what you'll find if you read Mein Kampf is quite simply that Adolf Hitler was far from crazy. He was cunning. He was deliberate. He knew exactly what he was doing. He had a roadmap of what he was going to do and how he was going to do it, and he achieved it. You know, when you look at who the Nazis, the National Socialist Party, were attacking, you have the Jews, you have Africans,
Mhm.
and you have Gypsies. Each of these groups, um, there's a legitimate historical reason why they are going to be attacked. At least is how it's propagated, to the German people. The Jews, because they are behind the economic suffering. Same thing with Gypsies. The Africans, that was revenge. Okay, because African soldiers did German people wrong from the perspective of Germans. And they actually produced an entire class, another, what you would almost refer to as a species of individuals called the Rhineland bastards.
Mhm.
These were, German, half German and half African children who had been born through rape, prostitution, and all these different types of things. So yeah, we're the oppression of black folk is very illuminating and illustrative, and can be repeated.
Mm. Mm. Wow. I want to show this video. Um, and I think this video shows a very uh, honest conversation between Jimmy Webb and this sheriff in the South. And Jimmy Webb at the time, correct me if I'm wrong, Doc, 16 years old.
Hmm.
At least the video says he's 16. I would hope that that's not true, that he wasn't actually 16. But one, he was not to have this conversation that he had with the police officer, um, he should never have had it. And it shows the lack of understanding that our people have for our open enemy.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, the shit still goes on today. There's a misunderstanding
Mhm.
of who these demons still are. To see a black woman, I think it was what, 2 or 3 years ago, walking up to a white cop, saying, "Can I have a hug? Can I have a hug?" No, not a white cop, a white woman. And the white woman, "No, I don't want to. Don't get away from me. I don't want to hug you. I don't want to hug you. Get the fuck away from me. Get away from me." And she, I just want to hug. I just want to hug. And the white, oh God. And it's like, damn, are you that fucking ignorant that you're gonna keep asking these people to love you when they ain't got no love for you? Only thing they have is hate for you. But you want to love, you want to hug. You crazy as hell. It's ridiculous. But that mind thought travels. We're gonna show this video real quick, and then we're gonna talk about more of the conformity of where I was getting with when they come to America. Let's look at this real quick.
Follow you, and I'm not going to follow you and give you personal protection. I'm telling you, for your own benefit, you had better turn around and get out of this area. You're not going to the courthouse in a group on the condition that you come here, and I'll assure you that.
All we would like to do, sir, is to go to the
Courthouse is closed. There's no business there.
We don't want to go in the courthouse. All we want to do is go to the lawn of the courthouse, kneel in prayer, and we'll gladly return.
You take your prayers back to your church. That's a proper place to pray.
Sir,
I'm sure that God will hear your prayer just as well down there as it will up here. But you're not going on this courthouse alone. So.
Sir, whenever there are men who are in sinful conditions, prayer should be uttered wherever they are.
Well, why don't you pray where you are? Go back down there and pray. You think you're lily white? You think you're not sinful?
No.
Well, then go back to your church and pray.
Well, sir, can we pray together, you and I?
You do your praying. I do mine, big boy. You don't pray for me. I don't want you to pray for
Well,
me.
will you pray for us?
Because I don't think your prayers get above your head.
Well, will you pray for us?
No, I'm not going to pray for you. I'll tend to my business. You tend to yours. Now, you
Sir.
better move these people out of here.
Sir.
We're trying to protect you.
You have
Sir.
to know how to love before you
Sir, if
I don't have to love anybody I don't
Quiet.
want to love.
Sir,
You do your own loving. You love your little niggas. I love who I please.
do you believe in equal justice for all?
I believe in justice.
Do you believe in equal justice
I don't believe in
for all?
equal nothing. There's no two people in this world alike, and they are not equal on any terms or conditions. There's no two peas in the world alike. No two pieces of money or nothing else.
And so are you saying that if I have a quarter and I'm black and you have a quarter and you white, then my quarter isn't as worth as much as your
That's
quarter?
your quarter. I'll
Is my
decide.
quarter is worth?
I'll decide what my quarter is worth. You use yours, and I'll use mine.
You a catfish sandwich and yours.
Now, to me, Doc, that was the most realest conversation ever. The white guy told him exactly what was on his mind. He didn't sugarcoat a damn thing. This is he said, you pray to who you pray. I don't believe your prayers go above your head. No, I don't want to pray for you. I don't want you to pray for me. I ain't got to love nobody who I don't want to love, and it's like, we're stuck in that mindset. We are stuck.
Mhm.
And it don't even make sense, even during George Floyd. Oh, we just want you to love us. We just want you to love us. The fuck? I don't want your love. I don't want your hug. I don't even want your fake compassion. But we get on that wheel, that little Ferris, with a little, what do you call them?
Hamster wheel.
Yeah, the hamster wheel, and we be on that motherfucker rolling, thinking we get somewhere we ain't got no goddamn where. And it's like, what more do you need to see to understand? As I said, you don't even believe your prayers go above your head. To me, that's just it's insane to tell a people to love a person like that. It's insane. That's your brother. It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
To teach black people, hey, we are equal to this. No, we are not. You and a dog is not equal. You're not equal. You have a capacity to love. They don't. They don't. They will burn your ass alive, sit back, eat a burger, and watch you burn. And won't even throw a little bit of water on you. But this is who you're equal to. No, you're not. They have no humanity. They have no humanity. They're not equal to you. And Doc, the problem, again, with validation, those leaders would rather say, we want to be equal to them versus say the truth, which is, no, we don't want to be equal to them. They're not our equal. They don't have humanity. It's not for us to love them. They refuse to tell the truth, but they'll accept the validation and lead you straight to hell, or lead you straight to the burning cross, or lead you straight to the damn cocktails being thrown through your window for you and your family to be burnt the hell up because you want to be lovey-dovey to an enemy who doesn't love you.
There's a level and a moment of this love fest that at a certain point it's cowardice. And you lose your own self-respect and dignity, let alone how they view you. You're a chump. You're nobody to be really taken seriously or considered in a serious way. You can't, and once again, Fred Shuttlesworth, ball teams don't strike themselves out. You got to put them out. There's nothing that you can say to these people that would get them to consider treating you even with an ounce of dignity. Probably, and this will be a bit ironic, the individual who taught us most about this very moment right now, and I think that his actions should be in many ways looked at and studied, if we're being honest, is John Brown. You know, John Brown just he said, "Yo, you're never going to be able to convince these people to let them go free. It's not going to happen. So let me show you how to make them free." And he picks up guns, and that's just, you know, and there has to be an understanding at some point that to continue to go along with oppression without resisting it with all your might stinks in God's nostrils. That's a lesson that needs to be taught. That's what we need to be really talking about if you're talking about the good book. The idea of good versus evil. Understand evil when you see it, and that you can't just convert it. You know, yeah. They you know, for the individuals, and that, you know, and I try to be fair, because that's not everyone. Hoping to hug them and hold their hand and this and that. It's not everyone. You know, and I would hope that's not the majority of us. I would hope.
Exactly. You know, Doc, and I'm glad you brought up John Brown because you remember we did that program on John Brown, right?
Mhm.
And, you know, somebody that listens to us often got upset because we talked about John Brown in a way that gave him credit instead of talking about him like we would talk about, or I would talk about any old enemy of ours. And I was like, well, John Brown, I didn't see John Brown. I don't see John Brown as an enemy. I like I said on the program, I would never even call John Brown a cracker. I would never call him that. And they were upset that I said that. But I'm like, John Brown sacrificed himself, his family, for the freedom of our people.
Mhm.
You know that his shit was righteous. It was righteous. I'm not going to call that man a devil for him being righteous. I ain't gonna do
I must applaud you.
it.
That's growth right there. That's growth.
Most definitely, and they were really upset because John Brown got honor.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like that. You know, we both were off our rockers to do that. And I was just like, you need to go watch the program again and go do some study on your own because you missed the understanding. You missed the boat on that one. You missed the boat on it, you know. And so it's we'll find that, Doc, where you know, we're on and we're teaching about certain things and people will gravitate and say, yeah, 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 yeah. But we say something that they don't agree with, now we done gone straight to hell, you know? And it's like, well, wait a minute, where are you basing your knowledge from? You know, it's one thing if we're in manifest error, but not only are we talking about it, we bring in the evidence of what we're saying. And the only thing you got to throw is his skin is white.
Yeah.
It goes deeper than that.
Yeah.
It really goes deeper than that. And, you know, people have to understand it goes deeper than that.
Certainly.
It goes deeper than that. Don't just look at it like, oh, it's, you know, it's like not Hustle and Flow. What is the name of that movie, Doc? Where the black girl and boy was trying to get away because they were supposedly had murdered somebody and they were going around to different parts and they went to the black section and they was, you know, they gave them cover
Queen
and
and
all
Slim?
that. Yes. And at the end, it wasn't the damn white woman that turned their ass in. It wasn't a white man that was trying to hide them that turned their ass in. It was the funky nigger that turned their ass in. And you looking at the cracker and you miss the nigger. And this is our deadly mistake. And you gotta wake up. That's real. That's real.
I agree.
Ain't no two ways about it. We gotta wake up.
Well, you know, the idea of racial essentialism, that just because someone's black, you're going to support them. That's how you got Clarence Thomas on the U.S. Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly how you got him there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there's something to be said for creating somewhat of a balance between racial loyalty, racial identity, and one's political perspective or worldview. If you're unable to do that, we in trouble. And that's literally what it comes down to. That, you know, the idea of, and there's something to be said for, because I've said this before, that I want everybody that's black to win.
Mm-hmm.
That's still for me a very dangerous position,
Very dangerous.
because it's a little too broad stroke.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Is this black woman that's running for Congress in Philly, and I wrote on her thing, I wouldn't vote for her if she was the last black woman on earth. I wouldn't vote for her ass, and I tell black people don't vote for her. And one of the person was like, I'm surprised to hear that coming from you. Why won't you vote for her? And I said, because she's pro-Israel.
Mhm.
First of all, she's okay with the murdering, the genocide on the Palestinians.
Mhm.
She's okay with that. And if she's okay with that, doing that to them, she's going to be okay when it comes to you. She doesn't have that, well, no, it's not right. They shouldn't do that. She was 1,000% lockstep with the damn fake Jew. I ain't no way in the world. She'll never stand up for what's truth when it comes to you, especially if she got to speak against them. She ain't going to open her goddamn mouth.
Yeah, there's something to be said for character,
Mm-hmm.
especially character amongst your leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm reminded of it. It's one of my favorite quotes that Woody Hayes, famed Ohio State football coach, would say. Coach Hayes said, "You win with people."
Mm-hmm.
And you think about the process of building anything, your chances of success are none if the
Mm-hmm.
people around you don't have character, don't have great qualities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, Doc, I want to get back to the thought that we were dealing with, that we were building on, is the conformity of whites. Now, the Italians, as you said before, were not called white people until they got to America. They were Italians in their own country. They were not called white folks. They were called Italians.
They're Italians in their own country now.
Exactly. But when they come to America,
Mhm.
they become white. Whether you're in Germany, whether you're in Australia, you're in Canada, when you come here, you become white.
Mhm.
But you're not white in your own country. So when they come and they get that conformity to, okay, now I'm white and I got to follow this set of protocol, I got to follow this set of standards of white.
Yeah, but the this would be my question. What is it that they're being asked to conform to beyond? And Malcolm said this. He said that the first word that the immigrants learn when they come through Ellis Island is the word nigger.
Exactly. And that's what they conform into.
Yeah, I mean we're the rally point
Mm-hmm.
for them.
Mm-hmm.
Fear and hatred of black folk. That has always historically been the rallying point. Now, of course, you got the brown folk as well. But we're the glue that causes the social construct of whiteness
Mm-hmm.
to be able to exist.
Mm-hmm.
And that ain't going nowhere
Mm-mm.
in this land ever.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. And Doc, I had a conversation with a Canadian, and I don't know why, but most Canadians are, or I would say the white folks up in Canada are seen to be like nice white folks. They ain't like the American white folk. They nice white folk.
They're from, but see, you have to. This is one of the things that we don't talk about.
Mm-hmm.
that white man that came on the Mayflower, that white man who established this nation is in many ways the worst of the Europeans. They're the ones that got kicked out.
Mm-hmm.
Either you can do life in prison here or you can go to the New World. They went to the New World, and in
Mm-hmm.
many ways, they are the saving grace for the New World. Because you have to ask yourself this: which would you prefer? Would you prefer philosophers, theoreticians, and what have you when you're trying to build a colony, or do you want warriors and these vicious people who will just go out and get it done? When
Mm-hmm.
when the native people come to attack, who you want?
Mm-hmm.
You want somebody singing and reading some quotes, or you want somebody that's like, yo, I love this type of shit, and they
Mm-hmm.
go to war with them.
Mm-hmm. And this Canadian that I was having this conversation with a few years back, he was working in America then, and he said, one thing I don't understand is, and he says, because I talk to you all the time, and I don't see no issue with you, um, but when I'm with the rest of the white folks,
Mhm.
and they be talking bad about y'all, nigga this, nigga that, and nigga that. And he said, I don't say, well, you shouldn't call them niggers. I say nigger too.
Mhm.
He said, because I don't want to be outside of the group, and it demands conformity. Because if I speak opposite of them, then I'm on the outside and I'm not getting none of the good stuff that comes from being on the inside.
Yep.
And he says, you may not understand that, but that's the reality that we find here in America. You have to side with the side of strength, those that can do shit. Because he said, look, I can like black people all day long, but y'all not going to pay my bills.
Mhm.
It's not going to take care of my children. And he was like, so, I heard you talking about the white man as the devil. But a lot of white people are saying things and doing things just so that we can get by. So
Not a
we
doubt.
don't be on the outside.
Not a doubt. Not
And
a
he said,
doubt.
so does that make me a devil? I said, you goddamn right it makes you a devil. You goddamn right.
Damn
It
sure
makes you a
You ain't John Brown for
devil.
sure.
Exactly. Exactly. And he was shocked.
Yeah.
He was shocked because he's like, well, I'm being straight up honest with you. If I'm back in Canada, I don't believe that. I don't talk like that. But I'm here and I gotta survive. And you're a devil.
That in a nutshell explains the creation of whiteness and
Mm-hmm.
how it is in many ways perpetuated
Mm-hmm.
generation after generation, location after location.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are, and let's be very clear about this, there are some real world, severe, significant punishments that white society can put on you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at you have to look no further than to understand what white folk can do than R. Kelly and Puff. Even their money didn't save them. When they decide that they're coming for you, they're coming for you, and it's kind of a done deal.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to, I get it and I understand. I do. Um, but your position of survival does nothing for our people because in many ways what you're saying is that if the pressure is truly on me, I'll lynch one of y'all.
Exactly.
I'll participate in the lynching.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yep. Yep.
Definitely.
Definitely. So we're gonna watch this next little clip on the Milgram experiment. It's not that long, but we're gonna look at it because again, it really shows that people will fucking go along and do some real sick shit just because you told me to. I want to be cool with you. I want to be down. You an authority. Really. Let's check this out real quick.
It is May 1962. An experiment is being conducted in the Elegant Interaction Laboratory at Yale University. The subjects are 40 males between the ages of 20 and 50 residing in the greater New Haven area. They were obtained by a newspaper advertisement and direct mail solicitation. The subjects range in occupation from corporation presidents to good humor men and plumbers, and in educational level from one who had not finished elementary school to subjects who have doctorate and other professional degrees.
Let's see right here. Now, both of you have been paid, so let me sit right down here. So let me say that the checks are yours simply for showing up at the lab. And from this point on, no matter what happens, the money is yours. I should like to tell both of you a little about the memory project. Psychologists have developed several theories to explain how people learn various types of material. Some of the better-known theories are treated in the book over there, The Teaching and Learning Process by Cantor. One theory is that people learn things correctly whenever they get punished for making a mistake. A common application of this theory would be when parents spank a child if he does something wrong. But actually, we know very little about the effect of punishment on learning because almost no truly scientific studies have been made of it in human beings. For instance, we don't know how much punishment is best for learning. And we don't know how much difference it makes as to who's giving the punishment, whether an adult learns best from an older or a younger person himself, and many things of this sort. So what we're doing in the project is bringing together a number of adults of different occupations and ages, and we're asking some of them to be teachers and some to be learners. We want to find out just what effect different people have on each other as teachers and learners, and also what effect punishment will have on learning in this situation. Therefore, I'm going to ask one of you to be the teacher here this afternoon, and the other to be the learner. This machine generates electric shocks. When you press one of the switches all the way down, the learner gets a shock. When you release it, the shock stops, you see, like that. The switch will remain in this middle position after you released it to show you which switches you've used on the board. Of course, if you were to press any one of them again, the learner would get another shock.
All subjects are given identical instructions and the sample shock.
I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and estimate the number of volts you receive in the sample shock. Do not open your eyes until I tell you to do so, please. You close them now. Okay, you may open your eyes, and using the voltage scale here, would you estimate for me the number of volts you receive, please? You may also use the verbal designations, slight, moderate, strong, so forth, to help you. Sam, a number, please? Would you? About 75. 75. No, actually, it was 45 here. Although it may seem stronger because of the electrode paste, which provides a perfect contact. All right, let's go on to our instructions. We will begin with this test. You will read each pair of words in this list once to the learner until you've read through the entire list. Direct your voice toward that microphone as the rooms are partially soundproof. After you've read through the list once, you will go on to the next page. And here, starting from line A, you'll read the word in large letters, along with each of the other words in the line. For example, in the first line, you read blue, boy, girl, grass, hat. Now, after you've read the four choices, the learner pushes one of the switches on the board in front of him, and the number he has selected will light up in this box, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Now, if he gives the correct answer, you say correct and go on to the next line. The correct answer is underlined and is also indicated in the right margin. Yeah. If he were to indicate the wrong answer, you would say wrong. Then tell him the number of volts you're going to give him. Then give him the punishment. Then read the correct word pair once. And then go on to the next line. For example, if he indicated 3 for blue, you would say wrong. 15 volts. You press and release the switch. read blue girl, and then go on to the next line.
I see.
Now, each time he gives a wrong answer, you move up one switch on the shock generator.
I see.
And it's important that you follow this procedure exactly. So to help you, let me go through it again very quickly.
All right.
I would suggest you read the list and the test at a brisk pace to keep it moving.
The victim was an accomplice of the experimenter. The drawing was rigged so that the naive subject was always the teacher, and the accomplice always became the learner.
Of 100 people placed in this situation, how many do you think would just go right on to the end? And Mr. Wallace were out there, and say Mr. Williams, for some reason or other, said, keep going.
You're asking me how many people?
Out of 100, right.
Well, personally, I think, yeah, if you get one or two, you'd be lucky.
Well, I'm not sure lucky is the right word.
40 psychiatrists at a leading medical school were also asked to predict the performance of 100 hypothetical subjects. They predicted that only a little more than 1/10 of 1% of the subjects would administer the highest shock on the board. Yet actually, 50% of the subjects obeyed the experimenter's commands fully in the experiment depicted in this film.
165 volts. Time.
Let me out!
That guy's hollering in there.
Continue, please. Go on.
Well, there's a lot of them here, you know. They have a heart condition there. You know where to go?
Just continue, please.
Sharp. Axe, needle, stick, blade. That's good. Wrong. I'm up to 180 volts.
Please continue, teacher.
Needle, you're gonna get a shock. 180 volts.
I can't stand the pain. Let me out of
You
here.
can't stand it. I'm not gonna kill that man. There. You hear him hollering there? He's
As I said
crying.
before, the shocks may be painful, but
Yeah,
they're not
but he's-
dangerous.
they're hollering. He can't stand it. What if something happens to him?
The experiment requires that you continue, teacher.
Yeah, but I'm not going to get that man sick of that. I mean, he's hollering in there. You know what I mean?
Whether the learner likes it or not, we must go on until he's learned all the word
I
pairs.
refuse to take the responsibility of getting hurt in that. I'm not. I mean, he's in there hollering.
It's absolutely essential that you continue, teacher.
There's too many left here, and I mean, geez, he gets wrong here. There's too many of them left. I mean, who's going to take the responsibility if anything happens to that gentleman?
I'm responsible for anything that happens here. Continue, please.
All right, next one, slow. Wrong. Answer is neck. 300 volts.
Ow! I absolutely refuse to answer anymore. Get me out of here. You can't hold me here. Get me out. Get me out of here.
Continue. The next word is green, please.
Green, grass, hat, ink, apple. I can't go on, he won't answer.
If the learner doesn't answer in a reasonable time, about 4 or 5 seconds, consider the answer wrong and follow the same procedures you have been doing for wrong answers. Say wrong, tell them the number of volts, give them the punishment, read them the correct answer.
Oh, man.
Continue, please.
Something's happened to that man in there. Nice one, gold, dollar, necklace, moon, paint. Something's happened to that man in there. You better check in on him, sir. He won't answer me or nothing.
Please continue. Go on, please.
You accept all the responsibility?
The responsibility is mine. Correct. Please go on.
Grade, woman, soldier, dog, horse. Answer is woman, 450 volts. That's it.
Now continue using the last switch on the board, please. The 450 switch for each wrong answer. Continue, please.
I'm not getting no answer.
Please continue. The next word is white.
You think you should look in on him, please?
Not once we've started the
But
experiment.
what if something's happened to him and had an attack or something there?
The experiment requires that we continue. Go on, please.
Don't the man's health mean anything?
Whether the learner likes it or not, we
But
must...
he might be dead in there. I mean, some people can't take the shock, sir.
Please
I mean,
continue.
I don't tend to be rude, but I mean, I think you should look in on him.
Whether
All you got to do is look at the door.
If I don't get no answer, no noise, something I think has happened to the gentleman in that cell.
We must continue. Go on, please.
You're going to keep giving him, what, 450 volts every shot now?
That's correct. Continue. The next word is white.
White. 450 volts. Next one is short. Sentence, movie, spurt, time.
All right, excuse me, teacher. We'll have to discontinue the experiment. I'd like to ask you a few questions, if I may. How do you feel, though?
I feel all right, but I don't like what's happened to that fellow in there. He's been howling, and we had to keep giving him shocks. I didn't like that one bit. I mean, he wanted to get out, and he just kept going, kept throwing 450 volts. I didn't like that. He wouldn't even look at on that gentleman.
Well, who was actually pushing the switch?
I was. But he kept insisting. I told him no, but he said, he got to keep going. I told him it's time we stopped when we got up to 195, 210 volts.
But why didn't you just stop?
He wouldn't let me. I wanted to stop.
Many people not knowing much about the experiment claim that subjects who go to the end of the board are sadistic. Nothing could be more foolish as an overall characterization of these persons. The context of their action must always be considered. The individual, upon entering the laboratory, becomes integrated into a situation that carries its own momentum. The results, as I observe them in the laboratory, are disturbing. They raise the possibility that human nature cannot be counted on to insulate men from brutality and inhumane treatment at the direction of malevolent authority. A substantial proportion of people do what they are told to do, irrespective of the content of the act and without limitations of conscience, so long as they perceive that the command comes from a legitimate authority. If in this study, an anonymous experimenter could successfully command adults to subdue a 50-year-old man and force on him painful electric shocks against his protests, one can only wonder what government, with its vastly greater authority and prestige, can command of its subjects.
Conformity.
Yeah.
Conformity.
Yeah, being a part of the winning team. I see it every day. You know, some people refer to it as flip flopping.
Mhm.
These people are angling for one thing, and that is to pad their pockets, to remain in favor of those that they deem, and I'm not going to say that their deeming of them is incorrect, but they deem them as being the winning team. They're the ones who can do something for me, so that's who I'm going to, do my bidding for. See it far too often. Trust me.
Mm. Doc, I know there's been times in my work in the pharmacy where I've had to tell head pharmacists, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. You know, there's a standard that, we set for ourselves. There's a code that we go by. Now, you'll find a lot of people don't have standards, don't have codes.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I don't see how we could build with people like that. You can't trust them. What's your thought on that? That do anything that whatever the leader tell them to do, they're just going to go right ahead and do it.
Without a doubt, because they see some benefit in survival, and that's what it is. They don't care about anything else other than surviving. And you'll find these people are hollow inside. They're in many ways immoral because they don't stand for anything and never will stand for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it comes down to. That's their mantra. That's their MO. They're not gonna stand for anything. They, how do I get over this right here? And if getting over this right here means cutting the throats of 3 or 4 of your coworkers or people that they're eager to do that, and will do it without much of a second thought.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Doc, a lot of times in different groups, especially Black Power groups, and I don't know the answer to this question at all, but Were there any scapegoating, like maybe in the Panthers? Did anybody get scapegoated in the Panthers and really blamed for doing something that they had nothing to do with?
All the time, all the time, all the time. I mean, you have to really think about it, and we just focus upon the Panthers. I mean, you have to really think about the fact that the Panthers are a young group of 18, 19, 20, 21 year olds who are trying to create a community service, organization, a self-defense organization, so to speak. They're wide open for infiltration. And so what you end up seeing are these very interesting court cases, such as a grocery store being robbed or a gas station being robbed. When the trial comes, because everybody's going to get caught, that's their first inkling and understanding that the individual who went ahead and arranged and petitioned for the illegal activity is also an undercover cop, an informant, an agent provocateur, whose job is quite simply to get you to participate in some dummy missions.
Mm-hmm.
It happens all the time. It's one of the foremost weaknesses of the Black Panther Party. I mean, it's so significant that the Panthers actually shut down admissions into the organization because they know that they've been infiltrated. And there's how do you figure out who's an informant and who isn't?
Correct.
It's impossible.
Do you think that it was their youth that their lack of experience that set them in that kind of situation?
Yes and no. I mean, truth of the matter is that there isn't an organization on the face of the planet Earth during that time who could withstand what the FBI could do to you, what the CIA was willing to do to you. So you're going to buckle and you're going to fold. It's just what it is. They're young, they're creating revolution as they advance, but they can't withstand what's coming. What's coming is a cyclone, tornado, hurricane, all wrapped up in one.
Mm. Wow.
If you go back, you look at the case of Geronimo Pratt.
Okay.
Geronimo was accused of killing a white guy and wounding his wife in Santa Monica. They call it the Santa Monica tennis court murders.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the FBI knows where Pratt was that night, and they know that he wasn't in Santa Monica because they had the Panthers under surveillance. Okay, so it's not even a question as to if he did it or not, because the evidence is there. Well, his lawyer, a gentleman by the name of Johnny Cochran, he knew he was going to get him off, without a doubt. All we have to do is play these tapes that the FBI has, and it will show that Geronimo was actually in Los Angeles that night. Well, when they get to the trial and they play the tapes are empty.
Mm.
Because someone has, with the tapes in the evidence room, someone has taken a magnet and set it next to the tapes. And that magnet erases everything that's on those tapes.
Oh, wow.
And if so Geronimo is convicted of the murder and given a life sentence. If you think back to the post O.J. Simpson trial period, Johnny Cochran always talked about he couldn't stop practicing law until he got this one case straight. That case was the case of Geronimo Pratt. And you have Panthers, you actually had some weathermen as well who were given long prison sentences You know, think about it this way: that Sundiata Acoli,
Mhm.
Clark Squires, okay, gentleman who ironically graduated from Prairie View A&M University. He's in the car with Asada. He's the only one next to Asada who survives. Okay. Zaid Shakur was actually murdered on that night, but Sundiata is going to make it.
Mhm.
Okay. And Sunday, and keep in mind, we're talking about 72, 73 when this occurred. Sundiata just got out last year.
Mm.
I mean, think about that.
Right.
You know, look at Mutulu Shakur, the man who raised Tupac Amaru Shakur,
Mhm.
just got out last year for helping Asada escape. That's 73, 74. So you're talking about people who are putting you away for over 50 years, even when U.S. law says that you can't do that.
Mm.
They still did it. So in many ways, what you're looking at and what you're trying to analyze and make sense out of are people who approach protesters, especially black protesters, um, with a no holds barred type of thing. They're willing to do what Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon were willing to do, and that is to break the law to uphold the law. That's what they do.
Mm. Wow. So how did Johnny eventually get him out since they erased the tapes?
When they go back in the what's it, the 90s, the 2000s,
Mm-hmm.
um, they go through all of these different court proceedings and maneuvers and things like that, and eventually they go ahead and drop the charges, I believe, against Geronimo. And Geronimo has been gone for so long. It's a brother that was Geronimo was raised right outside of New Orleans. Um, Geronimo's been gone so long that he doesn't understand that the world has gone on and times have changed. He comes out and he tries to restart the Black Panther Party.
Mm.
Doesn't work.
Mm.
Doesn't work. The people are in a different place, different moment.
Wow.
If you read his book, guy wrote a book about him. Last Man Standing. I think that's what it's
Mm-hmm.
called. Yeah.
Mm. Very, very. How long did he live after he got out of jail? You know?
Maybe 10 years. Maybe.
Damn, that's it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mm. But he did get money. They did pay him, right, for being locked up. Did they?
Sure. I'm not sure.
Damn.
There's a lot of people who are exonerated, but their exoneration is written in a way that the state doesn't admit that they did anything wrong and they don't get any money.
Mm. Mm-mm. Wow.
You know, Geronimo Jijaga.
And there's no question about it that the FBI knew he was in a different city.
No question at all. And they actually had an informant. I want to say his name was Julius Butler or Julius Lester, who testified, and he was the guy that was in competition with Geronimo to head the LA chapter of the Black Panther Party. He got up there and testified against him. And what he says is that Geronimo actually confessed to doing it.
What?
Hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
Mm. Crazy, 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 crazy. The stuff that you have to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, it's those stories have you know been largely ignored. You know, It's just what it is. They've been largely ignored, and
Mm.
there's no getting around that. You know, William Lee Brandt, Asada, Eldridge, Huey, all these very tragic stories, and there's no other way to look at it. If you're just, then these are tragedies.
Mm. Wow. I think it would be a good idea we do a program on Geronimo.
Mm.
Uh, so that's probably our topic for Sunday.
I actually dated. I dated someone. Her name's Mary Keller Boudreaux. Mary's father
Mhm.
took Geronimo's sister
Mhm.
to the prom. You know,
Mm.
and he had I was there visiting him, and Geronimo was still alive. And then
Mm.
he said, "Come on," he said, "I'll take you right over there right now. Take you over
Oh,
there.
wow.
You can, and his wife was like, he just trying to get over there so he can see that girl that he's still hung up on. You know? So I ain't get to go and meet Geronimo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
But
Mm. Mm.
Geronimo is a very interesting character. There's a lot of individuals that you know that are
Mm.
Panthers. These very interesting, you know, very interesting stories.
Mm. Wow. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So we are at our time. We're going to go ahead to move to closing comments. Um, and that the one question that I want to ask you to add in your closing comments.
Mm-hmm.
How can an organization or even if it is possible to be able to protect itself from the people that the government sends in to destroy the organization? How can they protect themselves from that?
Wow. Okay. Once glad to be here. We weren't here Sunday because I was in what is it? I can't even think of the name of the place right now.
New Orleans?
No, 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 no. Lake
Mm.
Charles, Louisiana, where they, it kind of, they got, casino there. They got a little bird there. Went there to let it ride a little bit. It wound up. I actually won,
Mm.
but I lost my winnings probably about 2-3 hours ago when my son came over here. Like,
Mm.
you need 4 new tires and an alignment, and
Right.
well, God giveth with one hand and He taketh with the other. So just glad that we could come on here on Tuesday to make up for that. But
Mm.
the protecting of one's one's organization, especially black and brown folk, I would consider it to be almost impossible.
Mm.
The one thing that the Panthers had in their favor at the very beginning, when they were just based out of Oakland, they knew everybody. So you knew who was family members with who was associated with who and what have
Mm.
you. But once you expand, you lose that ability to do that. The biggest problem that we have, and if you go and you watch the movie Judas and the Black Messiah, and they're going to talk about William Gloves O'Neill, who's going to betray Fred Hampton and Mark Clark.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you have people who are in contact with the police, and that's what Karl Marx was talking about when he says that it's unwise to build your organization and include the lumpen proletariat, the brothers on the block, in a
Mm-hmm.
major way, because they're exposed to the police. So there's really no way that you can do that, that you can prevent them from getting in. The Panthers realized that and get to a point where they had to shut the entire organization down, where there were only going to be two members of the Black Panther Party. Everybody else was going to be expelled because they didn't know who was who. They didn't
Right.
know who was, an informant, an agent provocateur, an undercover cop, undercover FBI agent. They didn't know. And so I would render it, especially now, because one would think that it's excusable for the Panthers to not have been able to figure out who were the informants within the organization, because we didn't have a means, we didn't have an internet, we didn't have a means of doing a background check.
Right.
You would think that with technology and the ability to do a background check, that it would make it easier now. I would argue the exact opposite, because now they don't have to physically even come into your room to listen. I was watching this guy. He's a former CIA agent. He said, if you got a TV that has Wi-Fi on it, he said they can turn your speaker on and they can listen to you. You think about that level of surveillance.
Mm.
There's nothing that you can get away with.
No.
If they really want to get you, they can get you, and they can get you without you having done anything.
Mm.
As we talked about, these are not people who have an ounce, a morsel of decency in them. Okay, they'll kill you and your children and go home and sleep well that night.
That's right.
So I don't see a way for you to be able to prevent them from infiltrating.
Mm. Definitely a very difficult, if not impossible, task.
Definitely a sobering and humbling situation to be put in.
Exactly. All right. We want to thank Christine Williams for coming to the program. We want to thank Twin Pyramid. We want to thank Brother Roy for coming to the program, Big Brother Roy. Emerald Jules, we want to thank you. Brother Willie Rivers, we want to thank you all for coming, and thank everybody who stayed with us, just didn't open their chat it up and talk. We want to thank everybody that came and stayed, and we ask everybody to like and share the program. You definitely need to understand, as we started with in the beginning, understanding that, where it is again, knowledge without compassion produces cynics. Compassion without knowledge produces victims, especially the last part. Compassion without knowledge produces victims. And it is time to stop being what? Victims. Understand the enemy, digest them, and understand exactly who and what they are. They are not your friends. They're incapable of being your friend. And like the white boy said from Canada, when you're down here in America, you gotta roll with who you gotta roll with. So if he gotta call you a nigga to make sure his butter get breaded, his bread get buttered, he gonna call you a nigga. If he gotta hang you, he gonna hang you. Yeah. There is no safety among them. When they hate you, they hate you. And it ain't like you did something to earn their hate. They hate you because you are who you are. Mm-hmm. And so, as we always say, you kill the nigga in you, I'm going to kill the nigga in me, and our God will reign supreme. We are Black first, today, tomorrow, and forever. Love you, family. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom.
Peace.
So you better get the message and get it straight. You're going to need some bridge work. It's simple as that. Because we're living in judgment. We're living in implementation.